On August 7, 2026, the Department of Defense added 41 records to its public unidentified anomalous phenomena archive. 16 videos, 22 documents, 3 images. It was the 5th tranche released under the initiative the Pentagon calls Pursue, and it pushed the total public archive to 375 files, spanning material dated from 1947 through 2026. The coverage wrote itself: a large triangle over Afghanistan, an orb over the Middle East, a black sphere over the Pacific. But the department's own framing was considerably narrower. These releases, it said, do not establish evidence of extraterrestrial activity, and the cases remain unresolved. That word choice matters. To read this tranche properly, you need the statutory backdrop. The fiscal year 2024 National Defense Authorization Act directed the creation of a UAP records collection at the National Archives, requiring federal agencies to identify and transmit relevant holdings. The far more aggressive provisions of the original Schumer-Rounds UAP Disclosure Act, including an independent review board and eminent domain authority over recovered materials, were stripped before passage. What survived was a records transmission mandate without a strong independent adjudicator. Pursue and the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office that feeds it operate inside that compromise. The Pentagon reviews its own material, declassifies at its own pace, and publishes what it determines is releasable. Here is the first discipline point, and it's the one most coverage skipped. 41 records is not 41 incidents. A single event can generate multiple files: a sensor clip, a follow-up memo, an artist rendering, a witness statement. Conversely, one document can reference several encounters. The 375 figure counts artifacts in a digital library. It is not a case count, not a sighting count, and it cannot be compared against RO's investigative caseload without conflating two entirely different populations. Nobody in the Pentagon has claimed otherwise, but the number gets cited as though volume equals resolution. It doesn't. The most discussed item is a military pilot's account of a large triangular object observed over Afghanistan in 2002, the height of Operation Anaconda, an airspace saturated with coalition aircraft, AWACS coverage, and gun camera systems. That context cuts both ways. It means corroborating radar and sensor data plausibly existed. It also means a great deal of that theater's material remains classified for reasons that have nothing to do with anomalous phenomena. What the released record appears to contain is testimony, a described observation attributed to a pilot from 24 years ago. Testimony is evidence. It is not instrumentation. And the file, as released, does not resolve the object. Two of the videos drew the most attention. Footage the Pentagon describes as an orb over the Middle East and a black sphere over the Pacific. Both fall into the category ARO has repeatedly flagged as the hardest to adjudicate. Electro-optical and infrared sensor video, absent range data, absent a second sensor for triangulation, cannot establish size, distance, or speed. RO director John Koslowski made exactly this point when re-examining the 2013 Aguadilla, Puerto Rico footage, a case where reanalysis of apparent anomalous motion produced a substantially more mundane assessment than the original viral interpretation. That is not debunking by reflex. It's a statement about what a single passive sensor can and cannot tell you. Two document types in this tranche deserve more scrutiny than they've received. First, FBI interview forms. Their presence indicates federal law enforcement interest in specific witnesses or incidents, which is procedurally notable regardless of what the witnesses described. It suggests reporting channels ran wider than the Defense Department alone. Second, artist renderings. A rendering is a witness's recollection filtered through a third party's hand. It is the weakest evidentiary category in the archive, and it is also the most visually compelling, which is precisely why it circulates fastest. Both belong in a public archive. Neither should be mistaken for measurement. The forensic question is always what's absent. Across the tranches, the recurring gaps are consistent. Witness names redacted, unit designations withheld, precise coordinates omitted, and critically, raw sensor files with embedded metadata generally not provided. What the public receives is typically a rendered clip, not the original data product an analyst would need to independently verify slew rate, focal length, or range. There are legitimate reasons for much of this. Sources and methods protection is real, and platform capability disclosure is a genuine national security concern. But the effect is the same, regardless of intent. The public cannot independently replicate the Pentagon's analysis. We are asked to accept the conclusion without the workings. Context requires numbers, and numbers require care. RO's annual reporting for fiscal year 2025 documented 319 UAP reports received during that reporting period. Separately, and this is a distinct count, measuring a different thing, ARO reported 50 unmanned aircraft system notifications near nuclear sites in fiscal year 2025, up from 18 the previous year. Those figures are not additive. The 50 are not a subset of the 319. They are separate categories using separate terminology, and merging them produces a statistic that exists nowhere in the source document. The archive total of 375 files belongs to a third category entirely: records published, not events reported. So what does the accumulation actually demonstrate? It demonstrates institutional continuity. 5 tranches is a process that has survived leadership changes, budget cycles, and political attention shifts. That is not nothing. Episodic releases historically stop. What it does not demonstrate is completeness. There is no published inventory of total holdings against which 375 can be measured. Without a denominator, a release rate is unfalsifiable. We cannot distinguish a program disclosing the bulk of its archive from one disclosing a curated fraction, and the material released so far skews toward the ambiguous: sensor clips without data, testimony without corroboration, renderings without instrumentation. The Pentagon's stated position remains unchanged. These files establish no extraterrestrial evidence, and the cases within them are unresolved. That posture is defensible on the material as published. It is also, conveniently, unfalsifiable from the outside, because the data required to challenge it has not been released. Transparency is not measured in file counts. It is measured in whether independent analysts can reach their own conclusions from the same evidence. On that standard, 375 files across 5 tranches represents meaningful institutional motion and incomplete verification. The archive is growing. The questions it was created to answer are not yet closing.